There's something I find, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm an authority guy, but the review is meant to be iterative, so you continue to see how these tools fit together. I know for me, when I first saw this material, it was hard to see how things fit together. So one of the things I'm always trying to do is show people that they do fit together. So we'll do that just for a couple minutes. We'll talk a little bit about your homeworks, which, you know, I don't want to make up any stories on this side of the phone. They were hilarious, but I also want to make sure you're finding value, okay? So I want to make sure that people aren't just having fun at my expense, but they're actually learning something that's valuable, okay? And that's what I mean. I just want to check on that. That's all. And then we'll move into really setting up for next week, you guys, which is all about the personal branding side of the equation. So we'll talk about our transaction model, which is the most important model that we give out, and we'll talk about what it means to put together an offer.
Okay.
Not a real estate offer, but a personal branding offer. Okay, so the 3 minutes, just hopefully to get the blood pumping on a Tuesday afternoon for you guys, is the games for identity. That is the game. Don't know why. Don't blame me. I didn't invent the game. I'm just a messenger. But for some reason, human beings at some point went, wait a minute, identity is now more important than anything else because we said so. And then we stuck it in the back of our minds. We forgot that we forgot. We started pretending, and we were pretending we're not pretending. And we would like to undo a lot of wasted energy there and just put people back in touch with, look, what business is about is creating, establishing, maintaining, and preserving identity. And you are who other people say you are in this game. You can say you are the best broker in the UK, but if other people say you're shit, then guess whose interpretation wins? And that sounds like really bad news until you realize you can design what people say. And most people are asleep at the wheel. And so what we want people to be is back in touch with, if this is the game, figure out what you want to be known for, design all your actions to be consistent with that, and when other people are saying about you what you intend, that's championship level performance in the game of identity. Okay? Now, when you get out there in the game of identity, what you realize very quickly is you and everyone else is playing the game from your reptilian brain until you have the awareness. And that means anytime you feel pressure, actual or perceived pressure, you and everybody else, me, all of us, respond with a very predictable one of these four responses. And the joy in this material is that it doesn't have to be that way. Somebody once asked me, they said, I don't understand. Are you saying our brains have not evolved past the point of the reptilian brain? And I said, you know what? I think we are talking about the evolution. The evolution past our reptilian brain is to understand that we have one and learn not to take action directly from that response unless it's a life or death situation, in which case it's the best chance you have to live. This is not a life or death game. Right? And all of us have either been through it ourselves or watched other people. I am watching my 44-year-old brother-in-law fucking die. He's got brain cancer. It's horrible. That's life. This is just a game. So let's just get over it and get on with it. And once you get on with it, you look around and you go, oh, that's interesting. That guy's a control. That guy's an influence. That guy's a power. That guy's authority. It's no big deal. It's like the color of your eyes, the color of your hair. But what you can do with that is you can start setting up meetings a little different. You can send a little bit more information to the authority guy. You can send a little less to the influence guy. You can send this to a control guy. You can send that to a power guy. You can send different people. You can start to play again. What a lot of people report with this material is game, business doesn't have to be something where you're waiting for your life to start on the weekend. You can actually enjoy the ride. And that's a big part of the goal that we have. Now, that being said, it's not just purely a cultural thing that we're after. As you saw last week, we get after people a little bit because you are on a field of play. You are out there in a game, and the last time I checked, everybody in that room is an ambitious person. And the more ambitious you are, why don't you play to win? I mean, I don't even understand why anybody would play a game to come in second. When you come in second, you're just the first person to lose. It makes no sense to me. So if you understand that, why wouldn't you start to take a look at the primary technology that human beings invented for this game of identity, which is language? And isn't it interesting that like every other technology on the planet, you can either do something that's productive with the technology or you can do something that is, fun or just, for stress relief, like playing a video game on your computer. Well, last time I checked, when you guys get together, we don't need to be playing video games. Let's go. Let's win. And for that, what we claim is you got to be over on the performative side of the ledger here. Doesn't mean the judgments are bad. Doesn't mean that it makes you a bad person. I got a lot of judgments. We'll go to a pub the next time I'm there, and I'll tell you all my judgments. Great. I think I'm really, a fun guy to be around. Not really, but I'm just saying, it's like we all got them. Okay, but who cares? Let's coordinate some action, produce some accomplishment, growth, some prosperity, and then boom, as you get out there, no matter how good you are in this game, the universe is going to rise up and smack you right in the face. And the difference between winners and losers in life is how quickly they true up after getting smacked. Winners are not having a life where they get smacked less. And that's, again, one of the biggest misconceptions that I find out there. Winners are people who get smacked and brush it off and go, give it my intention, what's the next most powerful move? Give it my intention, what's the next most powerful move? I once had somebody really challenge me about being an Ironman triathlete, and she's like, well, what would you do if, you tore your Achilles, your Achilles? Well, I just swim until my Achilles healed. Well, what would you do if you couldn't swim? Well, then I guess I'd get in a wheelchair and do the race that way. I mean, at some point, your life is either an excuse or you have what you intend. And this is what I always tell people. You either have the future you intend or you will have your story, why not, and you can't have both. And every time you get hit with a breakdown, as an individual and as a team, it is a decision point. Are you going to have some bullshit story and look for some agreement from somebody else and maybe even a little pity, or are you going to buck up and accomplish what you said you were going to accomplish? Look, we're all in this dirt ball hurtling through space one time. And as I said earlier, and I'm pretty passionate about it right now because I'm watching a very good man die. This is it. This is not a dress rehearsal. What do you intend? Every breakdown in your life is a consequence of what you intend. What is it that you intend? And I don't care if it's about getting to work on time, which actually is not an intention, by the way, or it's about putting together a large deal. When you're in touch with what you intend, nothing stops you. Think about it this way, you guys. Anything you've ever really wanted in your life, you've gotten. Anything that you were kind of lukewarm about whether or not you're getting, I don't know, it was 50-50 of the crapshoot whether or not you pulled it off. But anything you've ever really wanted, you figured it out. Nothing stood in your way. Think back to being a kid, the first time you saw a bike in the store, it was like, I want that bike. I don't care what it takes. I'll mow lawns. I'll do this. I'll do that. My intention is to have that bike. And for some reason, as we get older, we get into all this other morass of stuff. It really is that simple. It's not trivial, but it is that simple. Whatever you intend, you will work it out. All action manifests intention. Full stop. Okay? So that's where we are in the process. That's where we're building. Questions?
None?
No, that's good. Carry on. We're still here.
Carry on. All right.
Yeah, we're still here.
So, question about this. No disagreement. Good. The question I have about this map, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, is this map for present, future, or reviewing history, would you guys say?
Present.
Very good.
What, the picture in the middle?
Yeah. This is absolutely for the present. Okay, so that was Peter, right?
No, this is Willie.
Will,
I always
okay,
get the wrong answers.
That's your identity, with the right answers. Okay, now, that's good, because what a lot of people do with this is they immediately go...
Katrina's just joined us.
Hello.
Oh, good. Hi, Katrina. So the idea is if you answer these questions, and a couple of you did this, and it's not the end of the world, but I just want to make sure that we are on the same page about this. If you answer the question of what else could I have done when the breakdown hit, and you answer it from the standpoint of, well, I guess way back here in history, what I should have done was something different, then you're missing the point of the map. The point of the map is not that you have a Wayback Machine and you can go back and redo something. The point of the map is you're standing there having gotten punched in the face, and what are you going to do now? Okay? Because that's the thing is, we can always hash out what we woulda, coulda, shoulda, but we are where we are, and what are we going to do now? So I always just want to really make that point because a lot of people, when they answer the question of could you have handled the situation better using the fundamentals we discussed, what a lot of people immediately do is go, well, I should have done something way back here that would have made a difference. And that's, look, that's not a worthless conversation. I mean, it's always useful for learning purposes, but it's not going to help us right now.
So what you're saying is the breakdown has happened.
Yeah.
So you've got to deal with it. You've got to work out how to improve that rather than think about how it happened. Yeah.
Well, or you need to do both. Okay.
I read the
like
question,
having a good learning conversation. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying that I read the question as imagine what could you have done better? Could you have used this philosophy at the time? I read it as assuming that you're at the time, so the present, it is the past, but you're assuming it is the present, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that is right. Okay. All I'm saying, though, is what a lot of people do is they think that by saying what they could have done better is what we're looking for. And that's not the point. What we're saying is what could you have done in the moment? Because there is no Wayback Machine in life. Like, if you're sitting there in a breakdown and you realize, oh, shoot, I could have done this or that and I would have avoided this breakdown, that's not helpful. And we all have those moments. And I'm not saying that it's not, I shouldn't say it's not helpful. It is helpful, but only if you're in a conversation for how do we make sure this doesn't happen again and we're in a review context. If you're in a situation where you have to figure out what to do next, figuring out what you did wrong doesn't help. Okay, so it's I don't know if these help. You guys got to tell me, but like one of the examples I use is, an American football team. You could map this over a soccer team or a rugby team, doesn't matter. But an American football team spends all week preparing for a game, and they install a game plan, and they get everybody on the same page with all the play calls and all that kind of stuff. They run out on the field, they get introduced, the ball gets kicked off, and inevitably, like 3 seconds into the game, one of the best players will get hurt. Such a violent sport, right? Well, there's no way to go, shoot, we shouldn't have had him in for that play, and let's just call a timeout and go back and redo our whole strategy, and we'll come back and play this game in 2 weeks. Okay, you have to pull that guy off the field and figure out what are we going to do right now to carry on with our intention to win a championship. Okay, so all we want to make sure that we do is we interrupt the pattern of people just lamenting what they could have done better and staying focused right here in the moment with what can we do now. Does that make sense, you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Good. How's it going with styles? Anybody have any questions there? Any comments? Any, working with clients? You see anything in that regard? Is it still alive or has it disappeared?
There.
Say again?
Is it still there? I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's quite difficult to analyse who's who sometimes because when you're talking to someone you can't get that chart out and have a look. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Excuse me 1 second. Let me take a look at the app, right? No, you can't do that. Very good point. I think, I hope I signaled this when I was there. If I didn't, let's do it real quick here. I think these 4 are the best ones. So, if the chart is too many, which it is, I get that it's a lot, narrow it down to these 4. So how is the person relating to time? Say again?
So the first one, nickname, second one, operational time frame, third one, where they speak from.
Yep.
The fourth one, those are the 4 you're talking about, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, and to me, like what I do, you guys, is, my methodology, not like it's the right methodology, is I really spend a lot of emphasis on this trust distinction. Because what I find is that it very quickly narrows down 50-50. So if I can get a read on, is this person wanting to go right to the business elements, okay, or is this somebody who wants to spend a little time getting to know me, it's like it's already narrowed it down 50-50. I don't even know what the guy's style is yet, but I can be pretty confident that he's an influence or a power. Okay, and then I'll start looking at the time frame. Is he somebody who's more focused on to-dos and a structure and a little bit more regimented, which might put him a little bit more over here? Or is he a guy that, you know, is operating a bit more kind of like, boom, boom, fast, fast. Okay, here's this, here's that, like in the moment. And I will listen for these words. I mean, you guys, you know, we're serious about this, and I know sometimes people are like, oh, God, come on, can we not talk about the brain? But, you know, what people do is, you know, part of what we use language for, okay, is we use it to justify our behavior. See, birds just migrate. There's no justification. There's no language around it, okay? But we justify. And what you will start noticing is the language pattern that we use is very representative of our reptilian brains. And control people will use the word should. Well, you know what you should be doing there, Peter? You know what you guys as your team should be doing? You know what Collier should be doing? You know what everybody should be doing? And they're using that because it's a natural control perspective onto the world. Influences will be like, oh, man, we could do that. Oh, yeah, you know what else we could do? Oh, here, I had another idea. And so even if they're not using the word could, what it feels like is that they're talking about all the things we could do. And then powers have a very different feel. Powers are just way more black and white. Okay, look at this. You know, here's one we didn't talk about when I was there, but look at this. Okay? Powers are like, I mean, think about a guy like Chris McLernon. If you've been around Chris McLernon, I mean, it's kind of like, aren't we? Or, you know, are we or aren't we? There's not a lot of, like, fluff. It's like, yes or no.
I would say Chris McLernon has more authority, not power, from knowing him.
Well, it's very interesting because I think his core is power, but I think what he's learned to do is go clockwise direction.
Yeah.
Now, not trying to be right about that, but that's been my experience. Like, at his core, one of the things, you know, at least for me, okay, I'm not trying to be right here, Chris is very much an alliance-based guy. Like, he's very loyal. He's very concerned about making sure that other people are included. He was the right executive to send over to Europe to try to bring a fragmented brand together because he kept everybody at the table. He tolerated a lot of behavior that other styles would have gotten a little bit more frustrated about, and he kept everybody at the table, and he pulled people together. Okay, and you know, if you've worked with that guy, I mean, that guy has to-do lists like nobody I've ever seen. Okay, so, again, take Chris out. I'm not trying to be right about that, but I'm just saying, like, what power people do is they feel way more structured than any other style in terms of, like, all the work that they're getting done. Now, structure and details can look similar, but what authority people are all about are very deep into details. Okay, so they go really deep. Longest emails you get, the most analytical guy that you have, the guy that's fighting you kind of on every comma and every semicolon in your lease agreement, and, you know, that guy. He's a strong analyzer. Okay, so, you know, at the end of the day, and it is kind of funny, you guys, I need to change this slide, but in your sheet it says director, in here it says dictator, which was clearly a Freudian slip. Okay, but if you look at these nicknames, and you think about what we've been saying, which is the game's about identity, just ask yourself, like, what is this person's identity? Like, do other people, are they a little intimidated by him and they feel like he's a dictator or a director? Or are other people, like, really excited about the guy and they really like him and he's kind of a facilitator? Or is he kind of brass tacks, let's get this thing built, builder? Or is he a guy who's heavy into analytics and he's an analyzer? And, you know, this is what I mean is you'll start noticing that most of your developers are controls. Most of your salespeople are influence. Most of your COOs, most of your property managers are powers. And most people in valuation and most of your CFOs will be authorities. And this is what we mean, you guys. Even our professions many times are being chosen by our reptilian brain because our professions relieve the pressure. Like, if you stick an authority guy in a straight-up sales position, and by the way, I've seen authority people be really good at it. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but what you'll notice is it's not as easy for them. It's taking more energy because they're not people-first people by nature. And they've got to push themselves. Look, I do sales. I am a commissioned salesperson like you guys, and I am an authority guy. And it's like after seminars, I go back to my hotel and pass out because being around people all day is not natural for me. Okay, so it's okay. You can play out a position. You know, I like to think I pulled it off a little bit, whatever. But you know, it's just you will notice. Like even you get an authority guy in an influence-laden position. Like you know, I was in Houston last week. And after the seminar was over, these people were like, hey, can we take you to dinner? And I just looked right at them. I said, you know what, guys? No thanks. I'd actually just rather go back to my hotel, call my wife and kids, and take a break. I love you guys, but I'm kind of done. And they're like, oh, okay. Nobody was offended. It was okay. But it's like, that's not me. And so you will notice, that's why we always say, you know, you can't look at what somebody's telling you. You have to look at people's behavior. All action will manifest their style, not what they tell you. Okay? I get it. It takes time. I've been around this stuff for 22 years. I get it. You guys have other jobs. Okay? Not expecting mastery, but I am expecting practice. And if you don't practice, I mean, guys, look, after our last session, you're not going to have to listen to me anymore, which, depending on your judgment, is either the really good news or the bad news, right? Come on, nobody even laughed at that. Okay? But it's going to be over.
Peter's laughing at the thing you've drawn on the screen.
What's that?
Peter's laughing at the thing you've drawn on the screen.
Oh, God. See, that's you. That ain't me, buddy. Okay? Well, once it's over, it's up to you. And if you're not practicing with it and trying it, it's like learning anything. It's going to start, you know, atrophying on you. It's going to start disappearing. If you're trying it, and, you know, next week, hopefully, if you've got situations, bring them or email me or call me. Because the only time this stuff starts to really sink in is the day that you go, oh, that guy's an authority. Well, let me try this. Oh, that worked. Or, that didn't work, in which case I'm going to fire that Travis guy. Okay? But either way, at least you tried it. If you kind of sit through and it's all theory and you never wade in, you don't know. And that's, you know, that's not as good. Let's put it that way. All right. Let's move on. Okay, so in your workbooks there, flip over to session 5. Okay, and everything that we do with this material drives to this map. So all roads lead to Rome. All market force maps lead to this transaction model. This for us is the most important map. And as you're looking at it there, nobody's going to fall out of their chair. You know, again, not rocket science. But there's a reason why this map is so important. And what we'd like you to do is consider a couple of...
Travis, sorry, just bear with us 1 second. William has just managed to pour a whole glass of water all over his phone and all over the table. So a couple of guys just gone out to mop it up and to get some cloths.
Yep, let's wait.
We missed the beginning of that.
No, so yeah, thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
We'll give it a minute here.
Yeah.
This is a break in action.
Yeah, it's a break in action.
So what are the possibilities? Let's just cool our jets for a minute.
Let's clean it up.
Let's clean it up and chit chat.
And then we can take the piss out of Hab when he comes back.
No worries. So the new company, I think it was a retail shop. Have you guys met any of the folks from that company yet? Have they been over, or you know, how's that going?
They join us later this week.
Okay.
We have more desks going up in the office.
We're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got some hot chicks working with them. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Say that out loud.
And some hot boys as well.
Well played.
Hello. You can...
Well played. Oh, it's good.
All about it.
Well, as long as they've got some hot people, then it's a good deal, right?
But more, yeah.
Travis,
but more importantly, they are quite excited and motivated and driven. So it's quite exciting.
No, look, I know we're all joking around, but it is exciting. I mean, again, I can't remember if I told you guys this, but I hadn't been to your offices there in London for about a year and a half. So the last time I had been there was just, maybe a month or two before the move.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, it was like a morgue,
Yeah.
It was
much better.
It really was. I mean, just, and being across the street and people didn't talk in their respective offices, and it was kind of weird, right? But this time it's just really lively. Yeah, lively and energy, and then this transaction and stuff. And you guys, when I was there, you guys were also doing the recruiting conversations with the young folks out of the university. So I don't know, just feels like London's on the move. So it's very, very exciting.
All good. Travis, do you want to? We've sort of cleaned up now.
We're good to go.
Will has been back, but we're probably good to go. In fact, no, Will is back now, so we're good to go.
Okay, great. So here's what I was saying, guys, is this map, if we show this map to people in the first meeting, it doesn't have the same impact because you can't see styles. You can't see the difference between judgmental and performative language. You can't see what it takes to keep your balance. You don't see that the game's about identity. So it's a very simple map, but if you can believe it, everything we're trying to do is to drive for people to be able to play in this transaction model more gracefully and more often than the competition. Okay, so to give us just a little bit of perspective on that, I'd like for you guys to read these two quotes. First one here from Dr. Flores. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so take a quick read on that.
So when did he say that? Not in the 70s.
No, well, what's interesting is he said it in 1992.
Okay.
And that's actually, Will, the only thing I've ever found so interesting about Flores is that he was saying this, whatever it is now, 20 years ago or 22 years ago, and I actually think it's more relevant today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's probably become more relevant.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's become more relevant. And here's the thing: does anybody happen to know who Flores is? Sometimes people know who he is.
Never heard of him, but he looks a bit like Ron Jeremy's dad.
Oh my God!
Chilean president, by any chance?
No, he was kicked out of Chile with the entire Allende administration, and he came to the United States, and he studied at UC Berkeley, and he did his dissertation on organizational performance and the role of language. So the map that I was showing you on language is derived from work that Flores did, because the man that I learned market force from studied with Flores. Flores went on to actually be a consultant to IBM on the development of Lotus Notes, which was really the first tool that tried to take and streamline language within an organization to help people coordinate action to produce accomplishment, growth, and prosperity.
I remember Lotus Notes. That was probably the late 80s, wasn't it? Or early 90s as well.
Yeah, it was. It's essentially one of the first, tools, like CRM type tools, to help people manage the coordination of action.
Yeah.
Okay. So the second quote here is the other one that we want you to just kind of put together with Flores' quote. So take a read on this one. Okay, so if you take a look at both quotes here, I think it's pretty easy to say that both gentlemen are talking about change, and anytime you put people in a world of change, change causes upset. If you stand back and look at what people were built for, so take yourself for a minute outside of your job and just look on the planet at what people were built to do. What people were built to do is to come together with other people to coordinate the action to produce a future different than the current present. Whether it's winning a war or winning a sports game or doing a real estate deal, it doesn't matter. What's interesting is in the 21st century, what we are learning is that computers coordinate action at a rate and a pace that human beings many times cannot keep up with. So what you're starting to see is anywhere that we can take a human being out of the coordination of action process, we're doing it. If you guys travel 1/10 the amount that I travel, when you walk into the airport, you don't even look for a human being anymore. And that job is never coming back. It's gone forever. Because computers are binary. Now, again, don't have introducing judgments. Just try to look at what's happening in the world. If you're a reader at all, go look up the McKinsey article called The Second Economy. It's a little bit old now, about a year and a half old, but it's a great article from McKinsey on what's happening in the world, that really there is the development now of a second economy where computers talk to computers and no human beings involved. Okay? See, because computers are binary. They're on and off. Human beings lose their balance. Human beings have judgmental language. So in this process of the coordination of action, the networks tend to be a little bit more up and running, and it's the humanware that needs the upgrade. And I know that sounds a little flip and, and all that stuff, but we are putting out there, you guys, that we're living in a particular era. We are living in one of the most amazing eras in the history of mankind. There has been more technology introduced in the last 30 years than there was in the previous 400. And not by a factor of like 2, an exponential factor. And 100 years from now, when historians write about this era, they're going to, all the hyperbole of, wow, we can't believe what human beings had to adjust to. But we're in it. So it's, it's a little harder to have that perspective. We are in the interval between two orders. And our claim is that this interval between two orders is where you can either manage your own identity and you have tools to coordinate action, like judgmental versus performative language and the breakdown recovery model or the balance model that we discussed last week, or you can't manage your own identity or you can't coordinate action. And if you can't do both of those things, unfortunately, you're going to be left behind. Now, that's not my fault. I'm not trying to be obnoxious when I say that. I'm not trying to scare. I'm trying to get people to understand that if you don't get better, there's somebody sitting on the bench right now who wants to come in and take your place. And I'll give you evidence. Go out and read the book called The War for Jobs. This is a gentleman who traveled the world. He used to work at Gallup, the polling company, and he went around and he polled. And there's a science to doing polling. So when he went into different countries and cultures, he had to get the surveys right, okay, in ways that I don't even understand. But he went to every country around the world and he polled people, and his mission, his own declared mission was he was trying to figure out what's the number one concern on the planet. Well, you get it from the job title, or from the book title. The number one concern on the planet is to have a job. To have a job, which means not working on your own farm for your own sustenance. It's having at least, 30 hours a week, plus or minus, something that pays for you and your family. There are almost 6.5 billion people on the planet. There are 3 billion people of working age, okay, because you got babies and people who are retired and all that kind of stuff. About 3 billion of us are in the game. There are 2.2 billion jobs. You don't have to be a math major to understand that's a shortfall. In America, we look at 7% unemployment, but the underemployment, people who are just off the grid now, not even trying to get a job, is 15%. I don't know what it's like in the UK, okay, but we're seeing it over here. All the manufacturing jobs going over, it's the world is changing. And if you don't get better at these two things, our claim is you're going to be left behind. And that's why I keep imploring you guys with, when I get passionate about this is, you're either somebody who's just kind of doing this and going through the motions and making some money and, but you could be, it could very quickly sneak up on you. Or this is your craft and your profession and every day you're coming in and going, look, I got to make money, but also what am I doing to get better at this game? And if that's your mentality, you're going to be in the game longer than the guy who's just going through the motions, not thinking about anything, and boom, all of a sudden, the world passes you by. Don't be that guy. And what we're showing you now is we claim that the primary technology that you want to get better at is this transaction model. And if you look transaction up in the dictionary, it tells you what it is. It's a communicative action involving two parties that reciprocally affect each other. It's very straightforward. Now, what we'll tell you is that it's the primary technology for creating and maintaining your identity. And since identity is the purpose of the game, why not do more transactions? And we'll also tell you that it's the most efficient use of the technology of language. It's got all four of the performatives, offer, promise, request, and assertion. And now it's showing you the sub-moves between those performatives so that you can tell yourself and challenge yourself every day that if you're not doing something on this map, you're not growing your identity. Now, that's okay if you want to be off the map and sitting around in judgmental conversation. But if you're not doing something on this map, don't complain to me when you're not as prosperous as you want to be. The bum in the park and the CEO of a Fortune 500 company have the exact same amount of minutes in the day. One guy is just doing a lot more transactions. Okay? So, two primary purposes to this model, and I request that you guys write these down, please. Number one, the first purpose is independence. And what that means is, regardless of your style, you have to be able to perform all the moves on this map to manage your own identity. Regardless of your style, you have to be able to perform all the moves on this map in order to manage your own identity. Okay? Purpose number two. And interdependence, if you don't like that word, just put team. Okay? But interdependence. If you desire to play with other people, what this map can show you is how to cover your primary part of the transaction, turn and face a market, and hand off. And so this is the map over to styles. Okay, so I'm going to show you both of these in just a little bit more detail, but make sure you've got them written down for your thoughts later. Okay? Here we go. Independence. There are only 8 moves in this, so again, it's not rocket science. They have to be applied in a proper order. If you skip moves or, God forbid, try to go backwards, okay, it's going to be a problem. And what we would encourage you to do before you pick up the phone or before you go meet with somebody is think about 2 things. Number 1, what is the style of the person I'm about to call or the person I'm about to meet with? And number 2, where am I on the transaction model? If you're still at the offer stage trying to create identity and you're dealing with the power, there's some very different tactics you could employ. If you're at the promise stage or the contract phase with an influence person, well, there's some tactics that you can employ in that moment to try to get the guy to sign the contract. But what most people, again, are doing is they're running around in this game of identity, never thinking about what's going on, and then they're shocked, appalled, taken aback, and deeply concerned when they're not making as much money as they could. It's just not that hard. Okay? So, again, the good news is only 8 moves. You're looking at them right there on the page, and nobody's falling out of their chair. What we want to do is just take you through them relatively quick, just to give you a feel. Okay? A transaction is, and this is a little different in different cultures. Okay? And what people have expressed to me is sometimes Americans are a bit more pushy and all of that, so I don't, I'm not saying that you have to get into this conversation at the same rate, but if you look at the fundamentals, a transaction begins when the conversation moves away from news, sports, and weather and that kind of stuff And it transitions into what? So what do? In that moment, what people are trying to figure out is, hey, what's your offer? And an offer is a particular form of a declaration. It is a promise to the future. Okay? So all offers are declarations, but not all declarations are offers. Because I could tell you guys that my declaration is to do another Ironman, and that's not really something that's impacting your life. It's not an offer to you. But if I say I'm going to show you tools to help you make more money, okay, that market force is to help you get wired for prosperity, that's an offer. That's a promise to the future. It establishes what your brand is. Okay, are you sitting on an airplane telling somebody you're a commercial real estate broker? It'd be like me telling people I'm a business coach. Usually people just go, oh. Okay, so you got to be careful. This is where you establish your identity. And again, most people are asleep at the switch. The moment you send an offer into the environment, the very first thing people do, if it's got any force behind it at all, if it's got anything compelling behind it at all, people start going, well, what do you mean by that? I don't understand. Tell me more. What they're essentially trying to do is begin the process of negotiation. And if you look up negotiate in the dictionary, the Latin derivative of the word is neg for not, otium for ease. This is typically the hardest part of the transaction for most human beings. And what we want people focused on is that, and we would ask you to write this down, that negotiation is for mutual conditions of satisfaction. Not just what the other guy needs from you, but also what you need from the other guy. And most people miss that part. And so the way that we put it out there is we want you in the world interviewing your clients. Most people live in a world where they're being interviewed by their clients. And I don't mean that you can go out there in an untactful way, okay, but we would want you sitting there going, okay, is this the right size building, in the right geography? Is this, the right kind of guy or gal that I want to work with? You've got conditions, too, that you're interviewing the other guy from. Now, a lot of people don't do this, and here's the history that I see in real estate. So let me give you a little bit of perspective in real estate. This is what I've seen from brokers over the years, depending on where, they are in their careers and how ambitious they are. Is most people start out in commercial real estate without an offer. And that's okay because we're breaking into the game, and it's kind of like my offer is to do whatever you need, and I want to, I'm energetic, I want to learn, so I'll take on any deal, I'll do anything as I learn. Then there's a dividing point. And I don't know, it's not necessarily a function of time. It's a function of kind of how ambitious, how much the person's learned, and when they're ready. But some people at a point start specializing and saying, look, I'm about this, whether it's a geography or, a particular industry type, or even within an industry, they're an office tenant rep broker and they become a law firm specialist or something. And other people don't do that. And my contention is that generally speaking, if you walk down the hallway and the guy that in one word or in one sentence you know what that guy's about, he's more prosperous than the person that you look at and go, well, I don't really know what he's about, and he's more of a commodity. Okay? And what people start to do who make more money is they start realizing they, too, have to have conditions on the type of projects that they take on. And if something doesn't fit their conditions, they have a go, no-go strategy of some kind, some negotiation. If it doesn't fit in those parameters, they may take it on if it's worthy of trying to take it on, or maybe it's a small deal and they think it will grow into a big relationship. They'll make some choices to make exceptions, but generally speaking, they operate from that go, no-go strategy. And what you'll notice about those people is they have more market force. They're known for something. It's easier for them to get deals. It's easier for them to get invited into things. People who have no conditions and no offer are running around hat in hand hoping to make some money. And someday when they make some money, they'll worry about their identity. And that day never comes. And so the reason we call this your serve is, in the sport of tennis, the most important stroke is your serve. And if you get really good at the other strokes in the game of tennis, you will look great on a practice court. I mean, if I went out and hit tennis balls with, I couldn't keep up real well anymore. But if I went out and hit tennis balls like on a practice court with Roger Federer, I mean, I could hit the ball back. And so you guys would go, oh, you're a great tennis player. The moment the match starts, I'm going to lose 6-0, 6-0. Okay? Because my serve is going to suck after 20 years away from the game. You know, it's going to be embarrassing. Well, you can get good at the whole rest of this model that I'm about to show you. If you can't do these first two moves, you're never going to make as much money as the person who can. It's just how it's going to go. You're going to look great on a practice court, but you won't make as much money. So here we go. Here are the other moves so you get a sense. If we get through the negotiation, then promises start to be made. Well, great. If you can give me X, Y, and Z, then we can promise to deliver A, B, and C. And what we need from you is D, E, and F. Or if we get through the negotiation and realize that there is nothing to move forward on, sometimes the best promise you can make as a commissioned salesperson is to say, we're done, we're out. I mean, you talk to very successful people, and they'll tell you that many of the best deals they did were the deals they didn't do. Because they realized the conditions were not in place for them to be successful. But assuming that we're moving forward, the next thing that happens is that we store those promises in a contract. Because what human beings realize at some point is that we have our judgmental and our performative language collapsed. And we've got to undo that, and we've got to put our performatives in a contract. Because if you store your judgments and your performatives in your brain, your judgments will always win. Well, you know what? I don't feel like paying you guys your commission. Feels like a lot of money now that the transaction's over. No time out. Sorry. At the beginning, we signed and we promised to do X, Y, and Z. You promised to pay us. That's why countries that have enforceable contract law are always more prosperous than countries that don't. And the moment you get a contract after the party, of course, I get it. The moment you get a contract and after the party, you turn away from the person that you negotiated with. You turn towards your network of support, and you begin making requests of other people to promise, so you can manage their promises to completion, so you can deliver on your offer. So this is the moment at which we get to work. Now, we didn't go through this in this course. If you guys are ever interested, we have a very specific linguistic model that, again, came from Flores on how to make and manage requests and promises within a team. Because this is where the work happens. This is where we follow through on what we've said we are going to do. And at some point in the transaction, things start slowing down. And people look back at the negotiation and go, did I get what I bargained for at the beginning? And the moment they start doing that, there's an immediate allocation or reallocation of market force. Your market force either goes up or goes down, and nobody gives a shit for your story. And once that happens, people begin to make a referral. And that referral is either positive or negative. And that's why Colliers is in all Fortune 500 companies are using NPS. Because what NPS has figured out is the ultimate question is, would you refer? Game over. And what I want to give you an experience of, and I'll open it up for questions, is this is going on everywhere in your life. About 2 hours ago when it was lunchtime, you walked out of 50 George Street and started driving down the road, and all of a sudden you realized you had a rumbling in your tummy. And then all of a sudden every sign of every restaurant became visible. If you weren't hungry, you don't even notice the signs. Only when you're in the market do you notice the offers. And every single one of those signs is an offer. And you got the Squat and Gobble on the corner, and you got the nice restaurant across the street. And every sign is designed not to get everybody. It's meant to declare, here's what we're all about.
Travis,
the moment you... Yeah, go ahead.
The last 3 points that you made, the compliance, attestation, and referral, they're kind of... You don't really do anything there, do you? As from our point of view. After that, you can't allocate yourself market force. It's them seeing what you've... They compare to the negotiation that you made with them, and they decide if you did what you said.
That's
and the
true.
outcome's positive or negative. So those three, you don't really do anything. It's just
well,
they're the outcomes of the rest.
They are the outcomes, but there are things that you can do. I mean, if you think about how most compliance matters work, like when you go to McDonald's in America, when you've paid and they give you a number, and then they, then they call your number. When you walk up to get your food, a lot of times they've yelled out, number 213, and then you walk up and there's nobody there, and you pick up your food and you just go and sit down. When you go to McDonald's in Asia, somebody walks out from behind the counter, calls out the number, does whatever they do, hands you the food, and there's a bit of a bow. Because in that culture, compliance is, the completion really of the transaction, or at least starting, like you say, to get towards the end. And they take care for, look, this is what we're all trying to do, is coordinate the action to get you what you asked for and all that kind of stuff. So the experience of compliance. So this is where you might go and have a debrief with a client and say, how did we do? Okay, I mean, compliance matters. Compliance matters in terms of managing your identity. What a lot of people do, and I get what you're saying, there's less work. I'm not saying it's as much work, but it's still something that you can manage. How did we do? What could we have done better? Okay, a lot of people now are using NPS as a way of trying to manage the back end of this transaction, see what they've learned, and when somebody is, in a neutral position, we get on the phone and see what we did and why aren't you a promoter for us? Because a lot of times what people do is they completely disregard this, they do all of this, and then they just want to move on to the next transaction, and it ends up actually hurting their identity.
So how do you do that on a personal level, though? Because it's easy to do this on a corporate level, as you say, but if you're building your own identity, how do you do it?
Look, you realize you're running your own restaurant. So let me take you through the restaurant metaphor, and then I'll go right to that, because that's what we're going to do. That's what we're doing, okay? And so the restaurant puts a sign out. The sign is just to get people to pull off the road so they can begin the negotiation. We've all walked into restaurants, looked at the menu, and then left, because we looked at the negotiation and went, there's nothing here that we want. So the menu is the negotiation. If you stay and you promise to pay, they'll promise to cook it your way. They'll leave the ticket on the table, which is the contract. Then they turn away from you. So they go from the offensive side of the map, where they were dealing with you, and they turn away from you and go on defense now. And they begin making requests of the bartender to make your drink. And they make requests of the cook to make your food. And how well they make and manage those requests determines the size of the tip that you leave for the server. And when when you're signing the bill, you're either thinking, this was great, or you're thinking, I'm never coming back here. And when you go back to the office, you either tell people, take your clients there, or don't ever take your clients there. And it's the same like you say, at a corporate level for hotels. It's the same in, car washes. It's the same. And all we want you to realize is you're running your own restaurant. What is your offer? What do you need from other people? What are the promises that you're making that differentiate you from the guy across the street about what you're going to be able to do for people other than what the other broker can do? How well do you sit down with people and negotiate through contracts? What about your coordination of action? How do you handle it when the deal's over? How do you handle that compliance moment? Then what is your NPS score? Okay, if you're not using NPS, guys, I'm telling you, you're behind the times. NPS is a great way to let people know that you care about their opinion of you at the back end of the transaction. What could we have done better? Would you refer us? And again, I will challenge each one of you. Look at the people who are making the most money. They're already doing this. They might not be able to explain it or walk you through step by step, but they've intuitively figured out, or through training. I'm not just saying it's just intuition. Maybe they've got their own models or whatever, but they've figured out this is all there is to manage. And people who don't make money are off this path. Okay? They put it, they don't even put an offer, they don't negotiate, they struggle to make promises. They've got problems, deficiencies somewhere on this map. You'd be able to diagnose it. Okay, let me do purpose number 2, and then we'll take questions. Purpose number 2 is figuring out a way to cover your primary part of the transaction if you're so inclined. You may choose to do everything by yourself. That's okay. I'm not being pushy about that. if you are so inclined to work with other people, whether it's day in, day out on a team or even project-based teaming, here's how we'd recommend. And it's understanding that styles have primary strengths in the transaction. So circle referral and offer, and inside that circle put control. The primary part of the transaction that controls do really, really well is creating identity. Like what you'll start to notice if you really think about it is many people who are on teams, if there's a control person on the team, everybody refers to the team as the control person's team. Oh yeah, you mean Jim's team? Even though there's 6 people on the team, it's like, oh, you mean Jim's team? Because control people are naturally inclined to create more identity than the other styles. Like you may not like every control you've ever met in your life, but you're hard-pressed to forget them. Okay? So they're good at becoming the reference point. That's what a referral is. So a lot of times what we do with our control clients on teams is we say, look, your job is to get out to the breakfast meetings and the panel discussions and stuff like that and sit up front and answer questions about where the market's going and do stuff like that so that you become the reference point for market leadership for our team. And then when people start kicking around, you're the one that is really good at talking about the future. And, I could say the same thing as an authority person, as a control person does, and people hear it differently. Because when control people talk about the future, that's what they're naturally inclined to do. But if you leave a control person alone in the transaction for their entire career, they have breakdowns in all the other elements of the transaction. Which means that typically how they become known is difficult to deal with because they've got all these ideas, but they struggle to negotiate with other people. They have a my way or the highway natural negotiating style, so people just get burned out. And that tends to be because control people don't do as well with the next 2 moves in the map that influence people do well. Influence people are natural-born negotiators. They're very good at getting other people to make promises. That's what influence is. It's the ability to persuade. Okay, I'll come. I'll try it. And influences are naturally really good at that. But if you leave an influence person alone their entire career, they struggle with the rest of the map. And so what that tends to leave them doing is creating an identity for themselves of being a little flaky. They persuade people to try stuff, but then they move on to persuading the next guy to try it, and they forget to follow through with the first guy that they got to make a promise. So they got a lot of promises, but they struggle with the follow-through, and that's primarily because they don't do as well with the next 2 maps where power people do well. So power people are yes equals yes, no equals no kind of people. Are we or aren't we? So they're really good at getting into contract mode. They're non-threatening because of their sincerity base. Controls tend to be a little bit more threatening. So do authorities because of their confidence base. The powers are kind of like, look, if you want us to do all the heavy lifting, if you want us to do all the work, just initial here and we'll get to work. And then powers tend to be really good at taking all the requests in the contract, taking on board all of the things that we need to follow through on, and they start putting in a structure to crank it out. But the problem for power people is that they'll do all of that all the time and forget to ever look at whether or not they're making any money. And so everybody just throws more shit at them to do. Oh, just give it to Dwight, he'll do it. Oh, just give it to Dwight, he'll do it. And because they're, inclusion type people and because they're tolerators, they'll take it all on. I just started work yesterday with a power guy, 70 years old, okay, a broker, Fort Colliers in Houston, Texas. And look, he's made $400,000 to $600,000 a year for years. But as he was going through kind of, the different projects that he has, he still works on deals with $500 commissions in them. Guys, that is poverty. That is not prosperity. And I'm not trying to be an asshole. But he's so tolerant, he takes it all on. And I'm going, man, give that to a young guy in the office so that guy can earn his stripes. You don't need to be doing that. But that's what power people do because they forget to ever look at, am I making any money? What's the compliance on my side? Let me run some analytics on what's really working and not working. Well, authority people are really good at that kind of stuff. But if you leave an authority guy alone his entire career, he will suffer in all that analytics, and he'll start to become known as the guy who's just so downtrodden with all his bad news. And that's because authorities tend to have a real blind spot around their identity. And they won't get out there and actually make an offer. They'll have all these analytics, and they're great at reviewing the past, but it's like, man, we need a promise to the future about what you're going to do, and authority people clam up. So when you stand back and look at it, you guys, look at how this rolls. You can do it all. Or you can realize that you're really, really good at something, and other people are better at the other parts than you are. And control people tend to be really good at helping us design strategies. I don't know why, just they're good at it. Influencers tend to be really, really good at getting out there and finding lifeblood for us to work with. I don't know why, but they're really good at that. My wife, everywhere we go, comes home with a friend. She's an influence person. It is amazing. Even when she doesn't want to go. I come home with no friends. Nobody fucking likes me. It's unbelievable. Okay? But influence people, they're good at that. They're naturally good at it. Power people are really, really good at putting in structures to make sure we get the stuff done. And authority people tend to be really good at things that have to do with quality control, standards, looking at the details and stuff like that. So when you stand back and kind of think about this game, what you do is you look at this larger transaction now, and then you have each individual from their spot on the wheel put together their own offer to the larger transaction. And when you get controls doing a bit more strategy for the team, and you get influencers getting out there and finding relationships that can turn into revenue, and you get powers more in the position of a COO for the team where they're putting the structure in place, and an authority guy, more in the position of helping us work through breakdowns and figuring out the quality control and stuff like that, what you tend to find is that team will make more money than an individual trying to do all four of those things simultaneously. Questions, comments?
No questions here so far.
You go back to that slide. Just change the slide.
To this one?
Yeah, please. Thanks.
Yeah. And so what we're always trying to do with styles is not just personality profile people. We're trying to figure out what your strengths are in the transaction. And then get the right person into the right spot in the transaction. And then all of a sudden what people report is they're doing what they enjoy and they're making more money. And you can't make this stuff up, you guys. And look, not everybody who's been introduced to this material has found it to work as well as it did for me or for some of my clients. But I have literally had people call me. Travis, I'm a little bit worried because I'm working less and I'm making more money, and it doesn't feel natural.
Travis, is there a type of style that tends to take your this on board more?
No, I mean not. I wouldn't say one more than any other. It's kind of like really any sports team and any coach. Okay, look, I get that. Some of you may like me, some of you may not like me, and that's okay. That's how it kind of goes. But what I mean by that is I hope you're more looking at the material than me. Okay, but some people find this to be a great playbook to start running their business off of. Some people use other methodologies or use their own methodologies or whatever. Okay, it's never really been a particular style. It's more, does this framework and this methodology work for you, and do you see the distinctions, and does it make sense to organize your business this way? Okay. Okay, you guys, here we go. Flip over to the offer discussion. This is the last thing. We got about 15 minutes, which is all the time that we like to have, because what we want you to do is work on this a little bit. And we want you to engage with us, and we don't want to over-talk it, okay? But we want you to try this week to realize that we're ending the course at the beginning of the match. What we're now saying is we want to hear from you. People see in language, which means you create your identity in language. So what are you going to say the next time you're on an airplane or at a dinner party, or maybe to begin a pitch? How are you going to introduce yourself and the other people on your team? What are you going to say that creates the identity for you? Now, you may like or dislike mine. You know, I use Chief of Staff. Somebody else I know uses Pathfinder, and David Bowden, who runs a Canadian business, uses Innovate to Win. And you can have all your judgments about what other people are using. But at this point, who gives a shit? What are you going to use? And so this is the moment where you build your signage. So as I mentioned earlier, when you look out on the road and look at all the signs out there, those are the offers. And, you know, 10 years ago or whenever it is now, it's an older example, but I still think it's a good one. You know, when the iPhone first came out, it was just on the AT&T network. Okay? And the coverage, at least in the U.S., wasn't very good, and so people would be driving down the road and they'd see a Verizon sign that says, cancel your iPhone here, and they'd get their 5th drop call of the day, and it was a great offer. It's like, swoop, I'm so sick of this phone, and they just go right in and cancel their iPhone. That was a very powerful offer. McDonald's is making an offer that positions very much against Starbucks coffee. Okay? Look at Bob's Grill here. Bob's Grill is making an offer that you may not want to take him up on if you're, you know, trying to wine and dine your best client. But if you're driving down the road with your family and you just need a quick bite to eat, Bob's offer may be the perfect thing. Okay, the Comfort Inn and Ritz-Carlton are both in the hotel business, but you and I both know they've got very different offers and very different identities. Heineken has a very different identity than beer that's cheaper than gas.
Heineken's Champions League beer as well.
There you go. Okay? So all of these signs are very quick ways to understand what's going on. And if you've ever been somewhere where you can't read the sign, it's actually a very interesting experience, because we're also used to navigating through the world, being able to see in language. And the moment you can't read the language, what you notice is that it's exhausting. Because without being able to see what the offer is, it becomes really hard to get through the city. And I'll put it to you another way. Think about this. What if I brought you to America over here and brought you down to Tucson, Arizona, where I live, put you up in a nice hotel, woke you up in the morning, we all went outside, and you started looking around and go, holy crap, there are no signs in this town. Well, what most people will report is that would be a little disconcerting. And then in this city with no signs, I said, okay, guys, I need you to coordinate some action. So here's a package, and I want you to find the people in the town that send packages, and I want you to make a request of them to send your package and get a promise from them for them to send your package back to your home office in the UK. And since it's my hypothetical, no technology allowed, what would you have to do?
Speak to someone.
Exactly. And these slides are in the order because every time I ask that question, people say that. In the vernacular of the transaction model, you would go looking for a referral. Now remember, you can't ask, what's that?
Men don't ask for directions in the UK.
But if you just take me up on the hypothetical, you would have to at least look for a referral. Now, keep in mind, you can't ask this person, where is the FedEx Kinko's or where is the Post or whatever, because we don't use signs, so we wouldn't know what you're talking about. So chances are you'd ask like 5 people, they wouldn't know, so then what would you have to do? Well, you'd have to go find the building that was big enough that might be a place where people coordinate action to send packages, which means you throw the package on the front seat, you drive around, you pull into the parking lot of a building that looks like the right size, you jump out of the car, grab the package, lock the car, walk up to the door, oh, it's a dentist's office, darn it. So then you have to go back to your car, open it up, throw the package back on the front seat, and drive around. And the point is that transaction would just take longer than it needs to take. And the only reason I give you this little story, you guys, is, and I got to meet you folks in person, but a lot of times I'm only working over the phone, but either way, for me as a business coach, what if sometimes it feels like I'm walking into cities with no signs? And what I worry about is, does everybody know on this team what everybody else is really good at? Or are we a city with no signs? And so for many of my clients, what we end up doing is we take down your nameplate off your cube or off your door because, you know, look, quite frankly, you guys, who gives a shit what your name is? What we all want to know is, what's your offer? What do you bring? When do I incorporate you into the transaction? Are you an offensive player, a defensive player? Are you left-footed? Are you right-footed? Who cares about your name? They want to know, what can you add? And the really good news, because I'm not a marketing person, is it's not a marketing competition. It's just not. A lot of people think it's about having a fancy tagline. It's just not. Ask General Motors. Okay, 100 years ago, General Motors had the tagline of, you know, quality is job one. Everybody, including the people at General Motors, knew that that was BS. So it's not a marketing competition. It's an authenticity competition. Who are you at your core? And here's how you can find it. It's not, you know, a burning bush somewhere. What you start doing is looking at every time that you have joined up with other people, something different happened after you got there. Sports team, study group, friends, volunteer group, church group, wherever you participate with other people. The day before you got there, something wasn't happening. The day after you got there, you started to bring something to the table. You have been doing and performing on your offer your entire life. What we want you to do is put language to it so that you can lead with it, so that other people can choose quicker whether or not to participate with you. Now, if you look at the first paragraph here, just going to take you through a couple of sentences to give a little bit more context. See, your offer is a promise to the future, which again folds back over the conversation on language. That means it's a declaration. So it is saying something about how the world will be different if people engage with you. And your offer is also a manifestation, and that word can be overused, but if you look up manifest in the dictionary, it means to make evident. Your offer needs to be something that is evidenced in your actions. So it's a manifestation of who you are in the world. No sacrifice, no subordination. You don't like these apples, don't shake this tree. Listen, you guys, my whole life I have been the guy that's been pushy on other people. The people I went to law school with who are in my study group will tell you that studying with me was a real pain in the ass, because when I felt like we didn't get something, I walked over and locked the door and says, nobody fucking leaves until we get this. Now, each one of those people that I studied with, if you were to ask them today, would tell you they got better grades because they studied with me. When I was on a cycling group, I was the guy who was like, put on your heart rate monitors, and we're going to start tracking how we're doing. I have always, my whole life, been the guy who's pushy about getting better. If you don't want to be around somebody who's pushy, you don't want to be around me. My offer is to push you. I'm not going to change that. I will negotiate with you. I will look at your actions. Are you somebody that does the homework? Are you somebody who's engaged in business or whatever? And if you're not, I'm not going to fucking waste my time with you either. It's a pretty simple transaction that way. And each one of you has something similar, and we want you to get close to getting it in language by the end of this course. And here's why, because when people are not clear about their offer, they expect others to be responsible for it. And let me show you what I mean on this one, because this one, for me, from a judgmental space, will drive me absolutely bananas. Because what I'll meet up with, and let me just get all of these up here so you can kind of look at it, okay? I will meet up with control people who will fall into a judgment that this company has no strategy, or influence people who will fall into a judgment that, nah, this company doesn't have very good relationships in the market, or powers who will go, this company has no structure. Or authorities will go, this company doesn't have any standards or quality control. And what I want to do, and I still haven't done it because I don't want to end up in prison, is I want to just put my fingers into a fist and just punch you right in the face. Because if we had a strategy, we wouldn't need you, Mr. Control God. And if we had great relationships in the market, we wouldn't need you, Mr. Influence. And if we had a structure in place, Mr. Power, we wouldn't need you. And if we had great standards and quality control, we wouldn't need you, Mr. Authority. So instead of living in your judgmental space, why don't you come down out of the stands, put on your uniform, get out on the field, and make some performative language, and start helping us, as opposed to just sitting there and giving us your opinion. And this is what I was trying to tell you guys last week, is The people on the field make the prosperity. The rest of us sit in the stands, and we have to pay to watch them play. Don't be that guy or that gal. Get out on the field. Make a promise. Listen, my offer to this team is to help us really build a strategy going forward. Oh, you guys don't want that? Well, then I've got some choices I need to make about whether or not I want to be here. For people who go through this exercise, what they'll report is an experience of autonomy. Autonomy means the freedom to be who you are. And their offer suddenly becomes their identity, and their identity becomes their offer. You guys all know these types of people. These are people who say, I don't even feel like I have to work. I get paid to be exactly who I am. Well, these are people who are having an experience of autonomy on the planet. And then the final thing, before I show you the actual assignment and a couple examples, your offer may change over time. As a matter of fact, you may actually change your offer up a little bit in terms of the specific language you use for different markets in which you participate. So you may say something slightly different to your colleagues than you would to your spouse, to your children, to your friends, to your church group. But it all needs to be coming from the same place. So I don't tell my wife that I'm a happy-go-lucky guy. Okay? I don't necessarily tell her that I'm trying to be her chief of staff. Okay? That would be a little weird. But I'm not also going to pretend to be something I'm not to my wife. She knows that if it were up to me, I'd never take a vacation. Okay, so I'm not in charge of that for our family unit. She is. It's not my offer. So I'm not trying to be one person at work and something else at home. What we find in that situation, you guys, is what people report is a lot of stress because they're trying to build two identities. If you're just trying to build one identity in the world, what people tend to report is a lot less stress. Okay, so you have dignity, we claim, when the offer is in all the markets that you participate. We could call people up, and they would say about you something very similar. A couple examples. Oops, went a little too fast. Okay, here's some control and influence examples. What do you notice about these? They're short. They are simple English. Sometimes fire starter is a little bit like, whoa, what does that mean? Okay, you know, we're not trying to tell you what to do. We're just showing you some examples of what other people have done. You'll notice that these people have chosen not to make it about the industry they're in. It's very much about who they are. And what they're hoping to do when they choose to do it this way is somebody says, oh, what does that mean? And that draws people in to maybe, you know, now you tell them about the industry you're in. Okay? This diamond cutter woman is, she works for your Warsaw office, and she's in the evaluation team. And she's the person who is the final gatekeeper before the report goes out. Well, what she's said, what she's told me over the years is once she came up with the diamond cutter and she's introduced that way to the clients, she has way more identity than just the person who writes the reports. And she's really been appreciative of that. Okay? So let me just get to the assignment itself here. The assignment itself is, number one, that it's an authentic comment. And this is where we need the rest of the team to go, that just doesn't sound like you. Okay, so the first thing we're looking at is authenticity. The second thing we're looking at is that it's short. Nobody has it, you know, people spend 7 seconds on a website before they click and move on. And why would we think it'd be any different when we're talking to people and giving them our offers? So this little stopwatch says that it's got to be 10 seconds or less. Even that's too long. Okay, you've got to have a sign that pulls people into the parking lot. And we do recommend that you go a little bit less on the buzzwords. Synergy, things like that tends to just, you know, feel like it's corporate speak or something. We like simple English or something visual like Pathfinder. You can do whatever you want. Okay, these are more just suggestions. Okay, kind of best practices that we've seen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you what we call our offer builder. And I'm going to show it to you here for a couple of seconds, and then we'll need to wrap up. Okay? So here's how your offer builder helps. And if you don't like the offer builder, don't use it. It's not about doing the homework this week. It's about getting to a result. So if you don't like a process and you're more of a creative type, a lot of people over the years have just expressed that they like a process in this. So step one of the offer builder is to just write down as many attributes of yourself as you can possibly think of. And one of the things you can do is ask other people. Okay, but you want to get as comprehensive a list as you can. Just attributes of yourself. Okay? So you write down as many that as you can think of. Step 2, you take those attributes and you begin to lump them together, the ones that are kind of similar. Okay? So, you know, athletic, leader, well, actually, that's kind of your miscellaneous category, actually, but brave and risk taker. Those are probably things that, you know, could go together. Okay? So you end up with groups, if you will, of light items. Then what you do, and you typically end up with 3 to 5 groups, then what you do is you define those categories. So you take one of the groups and you kind of go, okay, well, what's the core attribute of this? Now, it might be a word that's already in the group, or you might look at the group and come up with a slightly different, you know, way to describe it. But either way, you're taking the group now and you're narrowing it down to kind of a core attribute. So you've taken a list of 20, you get it down to 3 to 5 things. Then comes the hard part. Quite honestly, the first 3 steps are easy. Now it gets hard, because this is where you make your money. What we want you to do here is keep in mind the great selling advice that we've all heard, which is attributes tell and benefits sell. And the example we use is the guy from Revlon who came out once and said, look, in the factory we make cosmetics. In the stores we sell hope. So they didn't go to the stores selling cosmetics. That isn't the selling point. The attributes are that we're making cosmetics. That what the benefit they're selling is hope. So step 4 is about taking your core attributes, okay, whatever you come up with, and starting now to put them in wording that is a benefit to your client. Because the client doesn't care about you. They care about how are you going to benefit me. Okay? So once you make that conversion, then what you do is you should look for a summary offer. So you take your benefits and you kind of go, well, what's a way that I could summarize this in a 5 to 7 word statement? Okay, and for me, I just showed you mine, like my offer is becoming your chief of staff. Well, what does that mean, Travis? Well, listen, I'm a student of the game and I'm going to be able to show you a lot of best practices and methodologies to help you make more money. I seem to be somebody who gets up to speed very quickly with your business concerns, and then I quickly add value. Plus, what you're going to find is you can get me 24/7. I will always put your interest first. Now, you may not like mine. Get out of the judgmental space, but I'm just showing you that I can have that conversation at a drop of a hat anytime, anywhere with anybody, and some people will go, oh, that's kind of interesting. Other people go, nope, not interested. What's yours going to be? Okay? So that's the concept of what we want you to build. That's the architecture that we want you to aspire to, because that's what we found is compelling for people. What do you do? What does that mean? Which means, what are your benefits? Give me some examples. What would it take for me to participate with you? That is how most of these conversations tend to unfold. So we're out of time. Started a little late. That's why we got to get these things on time, guys. But that's the assignment. Everybody clear what we're doing for next week? Because what we're going to do next week is you're not going to have to listen to me talk anymore. That's over. Next week we're going to go around the room, have each one of you state what your offers are, get some feedback from me and the other people in the room. Clear?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Boom. We did it. All right, you guys. Well, thank you very much. I'll get you the recording and the offer builder by tomorrow, midday at the latest. I'm going to work to get it out today, but my promise is tomorrow, midday my time at the very latest. And then we'll plan for next week, and we'll listen to what you guys have come up with.
Thanks, Dr. Travis.
Okay.
It would be helpful just having a brief email sent to everybody who's due to attend next week
I'm on holiday on Monday.
of what you want next week.
Can I join in another session, Travis, because I'm on holiday on Monday?
So
Absolutely. If what I would do is talk to Scott Sullivan, because he'll have a breakdown of the other sessions, and just jump on with another group. And I'll record the meeting next week so that you can also listen to your colleagues and get a sense. But yes, absolutely. And guys, look, I get it, you're on holiday and all that stuff, and I'm not trying to take away from that, but at least go through this exercise, because otherwise the course isn't as beneficial, and it's been more passive than active. And doing this exercise is very much active, and it kind of puts you at risk, right? And that's where we see the pressure, we see a little bit more of your style, all that kind of stuff that we've talked about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
very much.
Talk to you next week.
Cheers.
Bye.